Hello and welcome back to the Prado Museum here in Madrid, Spain, for more of our Wednesday series of short conversations in English. Today we're in room 41 at the Prado, and room 41 is dedicated to Venetian portraiture. So we're here with wonderful paintings by Titian and by Tintoretto and other painters. And today we're going to be looking at one painting by Lorenzo Lotto, that's called The Marriage of Marsilio Cassotti and Faustina Assonica. Now, Lotto was born around 1480 in Venice, and this makes him a contemporary of Titian, although his style maybe separates him a little bit from the Venetian school because he moved around a lot during his career. He worked in Rome, in Bergamo, in Treviso, and in other places, and this makes his style really a unique mix of a lot of different influences. It really gives him his own personal language. So today we're going to see some of that personal style and also see why some have even called him the very first modern artist. Now, it was in Bergamo, especially after 1521, that Lotto began to produce some of his best portraits. In Bergamo, there was an up-and-coming, wealthy merchant class of art patrons that supported Lotto, and maybe because of their aspirations for social ascension, they were willing to pay a generous price, and also were open to new pictorial ideas, like Lotto's proposal for marriage portraits that were more similar of a northern type of marital portrait, with this horizontal format with both bride and groom, full of symbolism that speaks both of social status and also of marriage. So in this painting, we see Marsilio Cassotti, the groom. He's a member of a family of wealthy textile merchants, and Faustina Assonica, the bride. She's a member of a local noble family. So this union would have meant a social success for the Cassottis, securing their position in the nobility, marrying into the nobility with this union. And the emphasis on the richness of the textiles and all of the details in the jewelry really drives home this idea. The Cassottis, they were a family that often looked to art patronage also as a way to visually exhibit their wealth and their social position. And not just in the image that they depicted, but also in the fact of promoting art itself and art patronage itself. This is a way that the wealthy bourgeoisie could imitate habits and customs of the nobility. And now we're going to see some of the symbols in the painting, because this painting is full of not just richness in details of the textiles and jewelry, but also in symbols related to marriage. And first we have Cupid. Cupid is, of course, known for his association with desire and love. He was Eros to the Greeks, Cupid to the Romans, and he's looking over this couple, smiling with a curious smile directly at Marsilio. But we'll come back to his smile in a little bit. Cupid is placing this yoke. This is what we see here, this stick that he has behind the couple. He's placing a yoke on the shoulders of the young couple, and this is a representation of the obligations and the work that is involved in making a marriage successful. And around it we see these little bits of laurel. And laurel was a symbol of fidelity among spouses, success, and also virtue. And Lotto is painting a very specific moment in the ceremony, right when Marsilio is about to place the ring on Faustina's hand. And of course, he's holding the ring finger. Now, the ring finger has been associated with love and marriage for centuries, actually because of a theory from the 6th century that there was a vein in the third finger that led directly to the heart, associating it with love. Faustina isn't wearing white. She's dressed in red, and this was the typical color for Venetian brides. And the jewelry she's wearing also relates to marriage. She's wearing a necklace, and this necklace of pearls is a symbol of the woman's submission to her husband. And on the necklace we see that there's a cameo. and the cameo has an image of Faustina the Elder. Faustina the Elder was the wife of Emperor Antonius Pius from ancient Rome, and she was the embodiment of the perfect spouse. And if we step back, we can also notice Faustina's stance. She's leaning her head to the side in this gesture that makes her look somewhat docile, maybe a little bit meek, and she's positioned a little bit lower than Marsilio as well. And these are ways to show the subordination of a woman to her husband in marriage. Now, these creative compositions that Lotto created, and really the psychological depths of the portraits that he composed make him one of the greatest portrait painters in the Italian Renaissance. And psychology is really what has kind of pulled Lotto out from the shadows to help his work be rediscovered after being overlooked for centuries, because that happens sometimes with artists, that they come in and out of fashion really just like everything else. And at the beginning of the 20th century, there was a great art historian called Bernard Berenson, and he was one of the few that really helped us look again at Lorenzo Lotto, really because of the psychological complexity that he's able to capture in his paintings. Lotto was able to combine symbols and gestures and classical references all together to make these kind of moody narratives that make us wonder about the interior lives of the subjects that he painted. And this is why Berenson said that he was perhaps the first modern painter, because he was really painting the interior lives of his subjects and not just the outward appearances. Now, it's certainly not a coincidence that Berenson was writing this at the same time that Freud was presenting his new works on psychoanalysis, and psychology was a hot topic at the time. But his readings really helped the art world look at Lotto's work again and revalue it. And so with this in mind, we have to rethink about the meaning of the work. We've already talked about an iconographic reading of this work with all of the marital symbols, but now we have to think about the psychology of the subjects that are painted and also the person who commissioned the painting, which is Marsilio's father. And so now we're going to come back to Cupid's smile again. And if we look at that smile, we kind of wonder what it means. It's a mysterious smile. He almost looks a little bit mischievous. And maybe more than a smile, we might even call it a grin or a smirk. And he's looking right down at Marsilio. Berenson pointed out how this kind of a smile, this kind of an attitude is really uncommon in a ceremony that is so solemn as marriage, and he thought that this gave a really ironic tone to the painting. So if Marsilio's father commissioned the painting for his son's wedding, it seems like this might be kind of a warning to his son about the hardships, about the difficulties of marriage that awaited him. We know that Marsilio married at a very young age, just at 21, which was pretty young and we're about to get married. So this also might be, aside from a painting that talks about social status, about the good wishes for a successful marriage, also be an ironic personal message from father to son. So with that, we'll end our video for today. I hope that you've enjoyed learning a little bit more about Lorenzo Lotto and Venetian portraiture, and we'll see you again next Wednesday for more conversations in English.